Hello, 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 our Black community, Canada, Ontario, wherever you're going to be watching us from. Good morning. I'm Fiona, the president of the Our Black Community Association, and it is my personal desire to connect myself with every community and every background of to people, to connect myself with people. So, Asha, I can't thank you so much for accepting my last minute call to say, can we chat about truth and reconciliation? It is so 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 important, and so I am really appreciating your flexibility. I know you're super busy and booked, and I'm just so honored to have the talk with you. Just to remind you that we're live. It's going to be on our Black community YouTube page, on our Facebook page, and you can feel free to share. If you want to share, you have to be on the Aurora Black Community Association public page. That is shareable. Tomorrow is Truth and Reconciliation Day, and I can't be more happy and proud for us as we move forward. So, Asha, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself, and let's just have a conversation.
Thank you. Make much for having me. Nada Nagwe of Crane Dishnakas. My spirit name is Healing Rainbow Woman. Ajijacto Dam. I am from the Crane clan, Nation Aguming and Dunjaba, and I'm from Cape Croker First Nation. My given name is Asha. I am currently on the lands of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and Haudenosaunee peoples. And I'm so blessed to be here. Thank you for this opportunity to share my voice.
Thank you so much. And it is, I like that you say share your voice, because on the side here we say your voice matters. And it's really what it is, the voice. So I can't leave this conversation because I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn. And to be honest, I was thinking, what question do I even ask? And I don't know what question to ask, but one thing I can tell you, like we've had in our previous conversation, I don't want to feel, I don't want to have to hide or shy away from speaking on behalf or on the cry of the Indigenous community because I'm Black, or because I'm Catholic, or from Jamaica, or whatever. What would you say to a community who don't know if they have the right to say, I'm going to lead this conversation, I'm going to invite someone from the Indigenous to speak, or I'm going to post about Indigenous and not let anything that you stand for differently separate you from having that heart to connect?
We did share a little bit about this together before we hopped on here. First of all, I think we need all of our voices. I think we need all of our voices in this. For myself, I can only speak for this one Indigenous voice, but I am so blown away and in awe sometimes of how many folks actually do really try to listen to the truth and try to listen to the stories that I share, and also feel it, right, and acknowledge it. There's a bunch of people who turn away too. I know I have that experience as well, where they cannot handle acknowledging or feeling into the pain and the trauma of Indigenous folks and what continues to happen to this day. So I have that experience as well. And I feel like the way forward is that if we're going to heal together, my communities are filled with very diverse, a lot of diversity, but we have this common shared experience of humanity, of our hearts being broken open. And when our hearts are broken open, there's more capacity, there's flow, right? So I just think that if we can come together and acknowledge, like, this is heartbreaking, what do we do now? The more people doing that, the better. That's my opinion. Because we need people of all different backgrounds and cultures advocating and caring and sharing these stories with our children, because our children are the next generations. They're the one that are here to walk this planet and land in a good way, and hopefully in a new way, because we've done a lot of harm.
Thank you for saying that. Because, like I said before, I've had, as a Black community, I've had white voices or allies who are saying, I don't want to take the space of a Black person, or I'm white, who am I? I'm going to stay here. And I'm like, are you a mother? Are you a human? Or you're a person? Do you feel? Do you have compassion? And if you have those and it's genuine, don't let anything separate you from getting involved.
Yes. And I understand, like, there's a line between performative action, there's a line between just doing something to just do it to sort of soothe your guilt or your shame. But I always say this, that's between you and creator. Like nobody can kind of say like you're being, I mean, people do say that something does feel performative. I understand that. And I think that fear of judgment can hold people back from doing anything. So say you do something and somebody calls you out for being performative. Okay. Can you keep going? Can you sit with that discomfort? Can you sit with that mistake? Can you sit with that learning? Like that's where the change is going to happen. That's what reconciliation is about. Can we be with the discomfort of messing up, of falling forward, of making mistakes? I make mistakes every day, but I don't have a choice to turn back because this lives in my bones. So I have to keep going anyways. But I think acknowledging that privilege too of people who make a mistake and have the privilege to say, I'm not doing anymore. Okay, that's nice. But there's a lot of people out here that have to keep going. So can you please just get back up from your whatever happened to you? If you felt like devastated by that, get back up and then walk with us again.
And I love that you said that, because the other day I have to get back up. I know that I've learned as a social worker in my background and as a mom and as a person. And I was raised by men and men. So we didn't have the choice growing up as a little girl to be soft. That was not an option, Nobody was going to take you up like, in Canadian culture, you see if you fall, someone take you up and say, oh, come on, baby, mommy going to kiss your boo-boo. I didn't have that. So falling for me and getting up is a natural thing. And the other day, I was glad that I have the ability to not take anything that anyone said to me personal, and also to handle it with professionalism and grace. Because yes, people would say, who are you? You're this, you can't stand for Indigenous, or who are you? You're this, you can't stand for Black. But as you said, be that domino effect and keep standing up. If you're genuine, it will last. So I'm really appreciate you saying that. What can we do further as we look forward to tomorrow? I know we wear orange. I have my pen brooch that an amazing Indigenous person gave me, and I wear it everywhere that I can remember to put it on if it didn't leave it on my clothes on the last time, but try to be conscious of that. We do those, and we know that there's more to be done. What would be some of the things that you can give us as a feedback or as a suggestion?
Sure. So I did an interview earlier this morning, and somebody asked me about the orange shirts and what I think about them. And, and is it a performative action? The most beautiful thing about orange shirts this year that I've noticed is that typically, there was a lot of creators creating them over the past couple of years. This year, they are sold out. And that's how I know that something's changing. I mean, it's changing after lifetimes of us speaking about these things. And that can be frustrating. But on the other hand, I think that there's an awakening happening. And the opportunity we have as parents, if you are a parent, or even if you're an auntie or an uncle, is to talk to your children about what that really means. And for educators to actually not just make a performative of, well, yay, we're all wearing orange shirts, but it's just like, okay, this is the true history, and be that education at home for the truth. This orange shirt is giving us all opportunity to actually speak about that, right? It's now in our faces. It's visible. The invisibility that we carry as Indigenous people as deep trauma is now kind of being worn outside of our bodies. So I think that's a really powerful thing. So I am pro orange shirts. I just wanted to say that because some people I know that they wonder about that. The other thing is like watch Indigenous documentaries, like about residential schools. Read the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report. Like read that and see like this calls to action. Are we taking these calls to action? How many have we actually walked towards at this point? I know that change doesn't happen overnight. So we're not just saying like, oh, we haven't done all this stuff. We are trying, but like how fast is this change happening? Talk to your children. I think it's so important. And somebody came up to me talking about like making something age appropriate. And I thought that was interesting because the truth is the truth. Yes. And I always say like, think about the children, the 4-year-olds, the 5-year-olds who were stripped from their families. They didn't have the option of sugarcoating that. That was the truth. So I don't really see a need to sugarcoat the stories because children can handle the truth, right? And there's these beautiful books that you can buy that tell the truth in really great ways. So that's another thing that I think we can do. We can read Indigenous literature. I think diversify your bookshelf and have Indigenous literature all on your bookshelf. We can just uplift Indigenous voices and creators, and those who are putting out their medicine in the world. I think that's a really beautiful thing to do. There's a bunch of calls to action I think that we can take, but starting there, those things are huge.
It is. The University of Ottawa, not Ottawa, Alberta, I believe. I hope I'm saying it right because I'm registering for their program. They have a free course on the Indigenous history.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just starting to register for that. Was busy submitting this grant and finally pressed submit yesterday. So I want to push forward to learning that. And I love that you say we don't need to sugarcoat, whether we believe it or not, Asha. Kids now are more informed and aware and hungry for the truth more than we can ever believe before. Some things that my 10-year-old say to me, I'm like, how did you know that, Jaden? It's like, I read it to you. So we need to be the one responsible for that truth that we're giving to them. If we melt it down and they hear somebody else tell us the real, tell them, now we are at risk for them not trusting us, for questioning the things that we feed them. So I think you're right. It is our responsibility to give them that good truth. And your children, you know what they can handle. But like you said, the truth is the truth. And that's one of the things that we all have to put in our pipe and smoke. This is the truth. Can I handle it? Get
Yeah.
yourself there.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I share a lot about this on social media, but I've lived with a chronic illness for a long time now, and a lot of the work I've done is trying to unweave the generational harm and trauma out of my bones and out of my system and my immune system, because I know that it's impacted me a lot on a physical level. And there's always this at the end of that healing. I think, okay, I'm carrying this. I'm carrying my ancestors' pain in my body. I'm carrying that responsibility on my shoulders. Can you all now just carry a tiny bit with me? Can you all now just carry, like, so that I don't have to suffer, so my children don't have to be sick, so we can be free? Can everybody take a little bit and put it on their shoulder and just be like, okay, I can do that? Because I think if we can do that, then that's how we are going to walk together, right? Instead of it all being on one people to hold
Yes.
all of the trauma. And that's, I know there's a lot of folks on here watching probably that carry their own trauma in their own way. And I am saying that I am here to do that with you too. I am here to stand with the Black community. I'm here to stand with all communities and hold a piece of that, because I think that's how we're going to heal, right? It's like that mosaic together, and just being human, just opening our hearts to each other is so vital.
Asha, I'm going to ask one of the viewers. I don't know who out there, but somebody need to hashtag what you just said. Take a little piece and put it on your shoulder. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you see me looking down, I'm just checking your comments to make sure we don't miss anything. We don't know where you're watching from, but thank you for sharing the broadcast, the post. This is how we build community and become stronger together and have this cultural humanity connection from different levels. So thank you. I just want you to really say that again, Asha, if you can, because I just love what you said so much. And I hope somebody can get that and just really hashtag it in the comments. You're carrying it, you're trying to heal from it. Can you take a piece with me?
Yeah.
How do you say that again?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I can repeat myself.
I know you can't, but I
Yeah,
just
I mean,
love that.
I guess ultimately it's just about, like, we've carried so much for so long, and when people say get over it, like, that's the big thing in the comments, just get over it. This is why we can't get over it. Like, if our grandparents are in residential school, like in my age, that's sort of the age of it for my generation. That's still a scene in my children. So if you care about my children, I care about your children. We care about all people's children. So can you take that one piece, because instead of, like, us carrying the heaviness of all of it, I think we have the capacity to carry one piece of that for others. And then how do we transmute that piece? What do we do to heal it, right? Because it's all we can transform it into forward movement, into vision. I do believe that, but it's much easier for us all to take a piece than it just to be on one group of people.
Wow. I was posting on the Instagram. I said, this is everybody's business.
Yes.
It's everybody's business. And when you make it your business, you're right, it is easier on those who really carrying the main load. It has to be easier. So we have Another 15 minutes. I know we're speaking for 15 minutes. What else that is burning? Right now, we're talking about truth and reconciliation. And for me, to be genuine is to not do something on one day and
Mhm.
say, bye, see you next year, September 30th. How do you speak to us about that?
Yes, that's such a great question. I think being really aware, like awareness of, yes, what happened in the past, and awareness of what's happening right now, like how there is not clean water. We hear about clean water and everybody's like, well, why isn't that fixed? We need to look at the systems and the structures that we are living in right now. That is the issue. Those are the issues, right? Like, yes, we can have these individual things and move forward, but it's like there are systems and structures keeping that in place that First Nations don't have clean water. And truly, that's white supremacy and racism. So those systems and looking at them and not turning away from those, I think is really vital work. That's everyday work that even I do, because of course we have internalized, white supremacy, all of us, I believe. And I've spoken about this a lot of times, but I think that can be daily work that we can do with compassion. So we can do this work if we hold compassion for ourselves first and foremost, then we're not going to get stuck and shut down in shame and guilt. So that's a really important starting point. And then every day, it's like knowing about the lack of clean water, knowing about, in October, I'm doing a drive for Moontime Sisters, the lack of accessibilities of pads and tampons and period products up in the northern communities. Many people who identify as women, they aren't going to school, or they aren't going to work because they don't have that accessibility to those products. So just even knowing that, right? Like people are shocked again, all I'm shocked, but we've been speaking about this for so long. So it's like, get to know what's happening right now in so-called Canada, what's happening right now. Know the lands you're living on, the traditional territories, perhaps even the medicines or some of the things that those territories held. Yeah, I think that's a really important thing as well. That's a very simple thing. Instead of just saying the words out loud, like I'm here, really feeling into it. What does that mean? What have those lands seen? What are the ancestors and spirit of those lands? How did they tend to the land, and how is it important to me? If I'm a settler here, how does that impact me? And just being so mindful of those things is really vital. It's an everyday. We have to live with it every day. So it should be, that little piece should be with us every day, I believe.
Thank you for sharing that. There's a question on the screen. Are you able to see it?
How do we center Indigenous knowledges and issues in our ABC communities events? Okay, well, tell me about the communities events. What did they consist of?
So some of the events we have, so for example, we just had our launch. We're just getting started. We are doing our Black History Month that's coming up in February. One of the piece that I just put in a grant, and I don't want it to be this about ABC, but I'm just answering the question to see what you would, right? Because it's not about our Black community. But one of the things we're doing is we want to bridge culture through food and music.
Mm.
And so getting people to say, hey, I'm from this background, I cook this food, and see how that soften us to come together and talk. We use movies with the Aurora Film Circus to open up that dialogue, because sometimes it's harder for me to come to you and say, hey, this person did this when we were this. But when we're watching a movie and we're taking pieces from that and say, how does this affect us today? What will we do when this is affecting our community? Is this still here? Those are some of the things that we've been doing right now. We were talking about things of financial literacy. So programs are ongoing, but those pieces in terms of this is one of the big focus for us. How do we get people to stop separating and come together, get to know me, get to know your background, and how we are more alike than apart?
Yes. Well, I mean, I always think that an opening prayer or a land acknowledgement, perhaps even a smudge, might be something that I'm seeing as I listen to you. I'm seeing like a collaboration of
Yes.
both medicines coming together somehow. I mean, you could do one of those where I just feel like then we're collaborating and co-creating and bringing our medicines and ancestors together. I think that would be really healing for many. But yeah, if you're centering Indigenous knowledge, I think always having a land acknowledgement, always having some sort of medicine there that is acknowledging that, that because you're just on that land. So it's just, that's a natural thing to do. But I don't know, I see some sort of co-creation would be really beautiful. And then we're learning from each other. And that's just going to help us come together even more.
That's right. Beautiful. And so that's why these relationship, Asha, for me, is so important. I was at the Aura Chamber of Commerce as I was getting, we're calling sworn in to be a part of that board. And there was a speaker there, and he really touches the core of my heart because of the things he said was so heartfelt. And a few things that he said, no matter what you do, no matter where you go, business, no business, always have empathy.
Mm.
Always have empathy and always create that culture. So that place where people feel safe to ask questions, to be silly asking that, not silly, but just ask the question, then assume and ask it from those lived experiences so you can get it genuine. There's another thing. There was a lady that was just very important as we get the first Aurora Black History Month celebration happened last year. And one of the things I was saying to her is that I hate that someone say, well, go Google it.
Mm.
And she said, well, Fiona, will you create something to say, we want to be your Google?
Mm.
Meaning we're not sending people away who's looking for information. So this is so important to build these collaborative meetings, conversation, making sure the doors are always open to come in and be a part of what we're doing. And it's not, this is a Black thing, this is a that thing, but it's a community thing where the voices are coming together for the better healing of our entire country. So we have a member on the ABC board who wrote the Indigenous, Our Own Land Acknowledgement. And I said, you know what, I want it to be viewed and read over by an Indigenous person.
Mm.
Therefore, we see, what did we miss? Did we say what's correct? Because it's one thing to say this is what we write, but can we have it revised or looked at by a person of the real, the Indigenous culture who can say, Fiona, what if this might not be correct? No, this is misunderstood. And so those are some of the things that we definitely have been doing and continue to do. So I appreciate that.
Amazing. I did want to say something about the Google it thing because I will say, like, I've noticed it this week, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, everybody's kind of scrambling to get somebody speaking for them. And it's fascinating for me to watch. I've been speaking about these issues for probably 5 years on social media. This is the first year that people actually care and actually want to have me in to do prayers and things for this day. And it's just like, it is interesting. There is a lot of emotional labor on Indigenous folks right now. So I just want you to be really mindful, like those questions that you could Google or you could find elsewhere, please do that. Because I think, like, I don't want to dismiss people. And at the same time, there's a ton of information that I've already spoken on for the last 5 years. You could go back to my Instagram and find out the energy, right? So it's like, there's a lot of questions in my DMs, a lot of questions in my comments that right now is just way too much emotional labor to do. And the thing is that we've been doing this for so long. So please be mindful of reciprocity. That is the way Indigenous people have always lived. We are a giving people, but we cannot give until we die. It's like this, like, it's exhausting for us to keep giving without any acknowledgement of what we're giving, basically. So I think that's a really, I understand, how that could feel dismissive. Like, can you Google it? But in a way, like, we've been talking about this forever. So it's frustrating when you just keep getting, and I will tell you, there's like hundreds of messages that come in my stuff, right? It's like, if I don't get back to you, it's just because I'm tired. I'm so tired and I'm trying to do my own healing.
I love that. And it's great because you guys remember that this is the pain that's already there. It's tiring. It is emotional work. It's spiritual work. It is. And so the reciprocity, that you call it again, reciprocity. What's that word again?
Reciprocity.
Yeah, it is so important, but sometimes we don't think about it.
Right.
We don't think about it. And so mindfulness, I appreciate you reminding us of being mindful. Go back. I remember being in a group and somebody posted, do you have any hairdresser for braid? And the person said, just search already in the history. You will see who have asked and you see who have answered. Right. So following pages like yours, your website will already give us that long history of information that was already provided. So that's amazing. There's a question from someone here. It says, As a white Canadian woman who has been spoken about the clean water issue over for years, found most people couldn't even hear enough to understand. And I hope we finally change this. Anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah,
Or
I was
delete
thinking
from the
about that this
podcast?
morning. I posted something on my Instagram, and then it was just about it's just a picture of my cute little child in his orange shirt, and I got all these unfollows, and it was because I was talking about this day. Like there was nothing. I was just like, oh my goodness, it just showed me really blatantly how people just want to turn away from the truth, and I
Wow.
think that part of this is that we're not able to sit with our own grief. We haven't developed the capacity to even like sit with our own emotions. And then we're so filled up with the stuff we haven't processed and moved through that to like have something else come our way is just like, oh, I can't, right? So that's why I think healing is so important, is doing our own healing work so that we can sit with another person's grief, so that we can sit with another group of people's trauma. Like we need to be able to have the capacity to do that. So I've been really reflecting on that in the 24 hours. So I love that comment because I was like, why is this happening? Why? Because I truly believe that most of humanity have kind hearts, and somewhere along the way we just get wounded. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my hope, is that we can do our own healing work so that we have the capacity to hold the trauma, to hold that peace.
Someone, so we appreciate your knowledge and insight in that is particular difficult time. Emotional labor. Yeah, that is, emotional labor. Healing, but yeah, emotional labor. We forget about that. We really forget about that. And again, it's a part of being mindful. And so we can appreciate you telling us this information. How does people reach you, Asha?
Well, the best way right now is probably to be on my Instagram, because I'm there the most. It's Asha.Frost on my Instagram. And then I do have a book coming out next year. So that is like going to be published by Hay House and coming out in the spring. So, and it does speak about my own journey with these issues around having grandparents in residential school, and how that has impacted me and my children. So it's also some spiritual gifts and healing for the reader too. So that's coming out. So I'd love people to be on the lookout for that, because that will be out on Chapters and Amazon and all the places.
And I want to touch on something that's probably going to be difficult. If it's uncomfortable, we can pass it. We talk about emotional labor, okay? And one of the things that I'm learning to balance well is that in the Black community, for example, we know that economy, that kind of wealth, we need to build that. And because most are givers, you're constantly being asked to speak for free or share for free. And I believe that touching on emotional labor, we need to invest, even if it's a honorarium or a gift or something. What, how dangerous, or what would you want to share with us about to make us feel comfortable knowing that, what, it's great that Indigenous persons or any person for any culture is stepping up to have these kind of lives and these kind of education. And we know we're calling for it and it's needed. But how can we make sure that we're putting some money behind these work? I
The
hope that
first
my
thing,
question is clear and
yes,
it's not uncomfortable.
it is. The first thing I would say is don't make the Indigenous person ask you for money. Like offer it. That's it. Just offer it. Like it's awkward and hard, especially if we have so many wounds about worthiness and entitlement. Like white people feel entitled to so much time, space, energy, DMs, all of it, right? That's just inbred in them. So it's like, do not make the Indigenous person ask to be paid for their medicine. Like the number of times that people say, come on my thing for like, do an hour ceremony. And oh, but you're not going to get paid for that. You know how much training I've done, how much healing I've done, how much therapy I've done, like all the things, right, that go into that, just to do that hour ceremony. And then you're going to benefit. And then the next day you say, oh, and I'm making a 7-figure business and I gave my 1 hour and you didn't pay me, like that's not okay. I'm very fired up about that issue, because it's not okay, because it happens to me all the time. And it's just not okay. Like you're taking even more. You've already stripped us from so much, our land, and now you want to take even more. Very traumatizing. Boom. Yes.
Can't be more timely accident with my son. Thank you, sir. But I and we get uncomfortable to talk about money. we get uncomfortable to talk about support. And you're right. I'm always saying, do not put us in the position. Nobody should be put in the position for that. Let me say, no, I'm donating this time. Let me say, hey, can I come and speak for you? But it is important, and it's a piece that we should not be ignored. And so I'm glad that you were comfortable to address it, because it is something that we need to address. Money is needed for work to be done.
Yeah, if somebody is going to come and offer me shelter and furs for my children and food, like if they're going to take care of me, that's amazing. But we live in a modern world now. Like I need money to pay my bills and I need money to buy food, right? It's just like that's it's just the way it is right now. And no, being paid with tobacco doesn't work anymore. That won't fill my car with gas. Like that's just not good. That's just not going to work anymore. So I actually stand really strongly for folks of color to be paid for all of the medicine they're putting in the world, for everybody too, but especially folks of color, because we have so much wrapped up in that, and we are entitled to that. Like we are entitled, if we are giving our energy, our capacity, our medicine, anything like that, we get something back for that. We don't have to keep giving it away for free.
Oh, I love this. I love this, and I can't thank you enough. I know you're super busy, and I'm not going to keep you any longer. You guys can find Asha on Instagram. She's also on Facebook. She also, her website is, I will put this up in the comment later. I think it's ashafrost.com.
Yeah.
So we'll put that up on your website, and any other comments or question, I'm sure she will try to get back to you, or she's busy. She need to also recharge after this weekend of everything that you'll be doing. So please allow those comments to just remain and continue to come and support. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be with you, Miigwech. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for just sitting here with open hearts and just listening. Tomorrow is just such a huge day, so maybe remember and really dig in, so we can walk towards reconciliation.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in and for being a part of this conversation. Continue to watch it, continue to share it, continue to listen to it home with your children. It is very important. And so, thank you again, and have an amazing day. Thank you so much again, Asha. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.